Welcome to the deep dive. Get ready because we're going to jump into some really foundational thinking today.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're exploring the nature of mind, consciousness, how we know things, and, well, that big one, the sense of self.
And we're drawing from a real classic in psychology. I mean, this work laid so much groundwork. The insights feel incredibly relevant, even now.
Totally. So, our mission really is to unpack the core ideas from this source, pull out the key bits, and hopefully give you a fresh way to think about your own mind.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so first up, the source asks this really basic question. What actually is mind? Like, what separates a minded action from just mechanics?
It's a great starting point. And the source offers a criterion, a key idea. It's about actions done for an end.
For an end.
Yeah, showing a choice of means. It's not just reacting.
Okay, so choosing how to do something, not just doing it.
Exactly. Think about that headless frog example in the source. Its leg wipes away acid. Precise, but it's purely physiological, mechanical.
No choice involved there.
Right, but an intact animal.
Hmm.
Or us, with our higher brain centers.
Totally different ballgame.
The actions look, well, spontaneous, varied, like they're aiming for something flexibly. That's where the cerebral hemispheres, those higher centers, come in. They allow for more complex, selective responses, things that look intelligent.
Ah, so it's the potential for choice enabled by these brain structures that signals mind. It's about flexibility of purpose.
That's the core idea presented here, that capacity for goal-directed, chosen action. That's the distinguishing mark.
And for you listening, thinking about this helps understand, why some of your actions feel automatic, like brushing your teeth, while others, like planning your day, feel deliberate. It starts right here. All right, so the brain's the hardware, right? The source acknowledges functional localization, motor areas here, visual bits there, but then it adds this really important nuance.
Yeah, it says functions aren't totally locked down in fixed boxes, especially the cortex. It's more like a crossroads, a carrefour, as the source puts it.
A central hub where things meet and influence each other.
Sort of, yeah. And this leads straight into a massive concept from this text. Plasticity. The brain isn't static, it's shaped by experience.
How does that work, according to the source?
Incoming signals, like from your eyes or ears, don't just trigger things. They actually carve out pathways in the nervous system.
Like actual physical routes.
That's the idea. And repetition makes these paths, well, wider, deeper, easier to travel down next time.
So that's the basis for habit.
Exactly. That's the groundwork. Simple habits like maybe biting your nails or always reaching for your phone in a certain way. The source suggests these are built on these well-worn physical tracks in the brain.
Wow. So plasticity isn't just some modern idea. This text saw it as fundamental, this shaping by experience.
Absolutely. Foundational.
Okay, building on that, the source throws out this really provocative idea about consciousness itself. What if it's not some mystery thing, but more like an added feature?
An organ, even. That's the term
But
used.
the organ for what?
And this is the quote, steering a nervous system grown too complex to regulate itself.
Whoa. Okay, unpack that a bit.
Well, imagine the brain gets super complex. Tons of possible inputs, tons of possible responses. Maybe it gets a bit indeterminate, hard to manage.
Right. Overwhelming options.
So consciousness could step in, maybe by providing selective emphasis, highlighting certain things, tuning out others, helping navigate all that complexity.
So it's useful. It's not just watching the show, it's helping direct it, helping us choose, focus.
That's the argument. It gives consciousness a practical job, connecting this abstract feeling to the very real challenge of guiding our actions in a complicated world.
All right, let's pivot from the brain stuff to the feeling, the subjective side. What's it like inside? And here we get that famous metaphor.
The stream. Consciousness has a perpetual flux, a stream.
The stream of consciousness. We hear it all the time. What did the source mean by that?
Several key things. First, it's deeply personal. It's always my thought, your feeling, never generic.
Got it. Unique to each of us.
Second, it's always changing. No two states are exactly the same. Every single moment is unique, influenced by what just happened.
So even thinking the same thought twice isn't really the same mental state.
Nope, because the stream around it has changed. Your mood, other thoughts, it's all different.
Okay.
And third, despite this constant change, it feels continuous. It feels like it belongs to the same self, flowing along even across gaps like when you're asleep.
That sense of continuity despite the constant change, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and then the source breaks the stream down further
Yeah.
into substantive parts.
Like the nouns, the things we focus on.
Exactly, the resting places. where you pause on an image, an idea, and then there are the transitive parts.
The connections, the verbs and prepositions of thought.
Sort of. They're the flights, the transitions, the feelings of relation, like a feeling of and, a feeling of if, a feeling of but. It's the sense of how ideas link up.
That sounds really hard to notice.
It is super hard to introspect on those feelings of transition because they're fleeting, they're movement. Language, tends to grab onto the substantive parts, the things we can label easily.
We have words for chair and table, but not for the feeling of, therefore, connecting to ideas in our mind.
Right. And the source adds this idea of a fringe or overtone. Like the main thought has this surrounding halo of context relevance where it might be leading.
That gives it its flavor, its meaning.
Exactly. It's not just the core idea, but everything associated with it in that moment.
Okay, this stream, it's personal, changing, continuous. What's its main job? The source says thought is fundamentally cognitive. It's about stuff.
Right. It deals with objects, things outside itself. And this requires what the source calls the psychologist's attitude, a basic dualism, mind knowing and thing known.
Observer and observed.
Yep. And within knowing, there's a useful distinction made. Knowledge of acquaintance versus knowledge about.
Okay, what's the difference there? Give me an example.
Sure. Think about, say, knowing Paris. You've been there, walked the streets, felt the atmosphere that's acquaintance, direct experience.
I know it.
Exactly. But if you've only read about it, know its population, its history, its famous landmarks, that's knowledge about.
Facts about it, not the experience of it.
Precisely. Both are knowledge, but very different kinds. And this ties into how we think. The source argues against seeing thought as just stringing together separate ideas.
Like beads on a string?
Yeah. Instead, when you think a whole proposition, like the book is on the shelf, you grasp that whole thing, book, shelf, the onness in one go.
One single pulse of subjectivity, as the source puts it.
That's the phrase. It's an integrated understanding, not separate bits glued together. Which brings up that fascinating question.
Can you think without language?
Huge question. And the source offers this incredible account of Mr. Ballard.
The deaf-mute man.
Yes, who described complex reasoning, thinking about God, the universe, cause and effect, all before he learned any formal language, using images, feelings, relationships he perceived.
Wow. So thinking, real complex thought, isn't necessarily tied to words.
That's the implication. The structure of reasoning can exist independently, it seems. Language helps express it, shape it maybe, but doesn't have to be the only container for it.
Okay, so we've got this stream of input, stream of thought. How do we even handle it all? That brings us to things like discrimination and attention.
Right. Discrimination is just, telling things apart, seeing differences, but it's not always easy or automatic.
Takes practice.
Yeah, and things like naming differences, understanding how things are composed, that helps sharpen your discrimination. Like a wine taster learning to pick out subtle notes.
Makes sense. And the source mentions Weber's law here.
It does. It's about the smallest noticeable difference. The key idea is it's proportional to the starting intensity.
Meaning?
Okay, simple terms. If a room is dimly lit, adding one more small candle makes a big difference, right?
Yeah, definitely noticeable.
But if the room is already blazing with bright lights, adding that same single candle, you probably won't notice it at all.
Ah, right. You need a bigger change to notice when the starting point is already high.
Exactly. The ratio matters, not the absolute amount of change. And this applies to weight, sound, brightness. Lots of senses.
Okay, so that's discrimination. What about attention?
Attention is the active part. It's the mind grabbing hold of one thing, focusing while pushing other things away, taking possession, as the source says.
Withdraw from some things to deal effectively with others.
Yep. And there's passive attention, like a sudden noise just grabs you. Reflexive.
Can't help it.
And then voluntary attention. That's when you choose to focus, putting in effort, usually because something is interesting to you or relevant to your goals.
Like trying to read this dense source material.
Exactly. And attention has real effects. Makes things seem clearer, more vivid, helps you react faster, lets you notice really faint things. It changes your immediate reality.
And why do we attend? Either the thing itself is loud or shiny or
it's connected to something else we care about. An association sparks our interest. Though the source notes our capacity, our span of apprehension is pretty limited.
can't focus on too many distinct things at once.
Right, and keeping attention fixed on one unchanging thing is hard work. Usually the object needs to change a bit, or we need to actively keep linking it to other interesting ideas to hold focus.
Okay, moving from the present moment. What about the past? Memory. The source has a specific take here. It's not just having a picture of the past.
No, the key is the consciousness that it was past and that it belonged to me, that ownership.
That feeling of that was mine.
Yes, tied to the self. And the brain mechanism is there again, experience leads to trace. Re-exciting that trace helps recall.
So the pathway idea again.
Mm-hmm. And memory strength depends on things like maybe the brain's natural tenacity. Some people just seem to remember random facts easily. Desultory memory,
The trivia masters.
kinda, versus logical memory, which is about remembering things because you've woven them into a system, understood the connections.
Remembering by understanding, not just by rote.
Right. And the source uses that wonderful example, Miss Bates from Jane Austen.
Oh, yeah.
Her mind just sort of wanders associatively, one memory sparking the next, in this delightful, rambling way. It shows how memory retrieval often follows these connected paths.
Shows how linked our thoughts are.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But also, the source points out something crucial. We need to forget.
Forgetting is useful. Seems counterintuitive.
But imagine remembering every single tiny detail of your life. You'd be paralyzed,
Yeah.
overwhelmed. Forgetting prunes things down to what's potentially useful or significant.
Clears the decks.
Exactly. It mentions Ebbinghaus's early studies on forgetting nonsense syllables, showing that sharp initial drop-off for things we don't reinforce or connect.
There's also that immediate echo of experience, right? The primary memory image.
Yeah, that lingering sense of something just passed, like the sound still ringing in your ears for a second.
Yeah.
That's different from recalling something from years ago. It's still kind of present.
And what about déjà vu? That weird feeling of, I've been here before?
The source suggests maybe it's like a faint echo, an indistinct or partial memory trace getting activated inappropriately, giving that feeling of familiarity without a specific recall.
So complex. But even explaining brain traces, the source admits the big mystery remains.
How does that physical trace give rise to the feeling of pastness and the feeling that it happened to me? That jump from brain state to subjective experience of a past self. Still a huge puzzle.
Yeah, the hard problem, in a way.
Which brings us right to the core, the
Uh-huh.
self, the me. How does this work approach that?
It starts with the empirical self, the me, which is, interestingly, everything you'd call yours.
Not just your body.
No, much wider. Your body, sure, but also your clothes, your house, your family, your job, your reputation, your values, anything you feel invested in and act, protect, or enhance.
Defined by our feelings and actions towards these things.
Exactly. Like when you might say, as a parent, I feel, versus as an employee, I think. Those are different facets of this empirical me.
Okay. And the source uses those unusual cases to explore this, right? The split consciousness ones.
Yes, cases like Ansel Bourne or Lucy, who seem to have multiple distinct personalities or streams of consciousness.
With separate memories, unaware of each other sometimes.
Right. And these cases really challenge that simple idea of a single, unified, unchanging soul or self. If consciousness can split, what is the self, really?
It suggests something to be less solid, more complex. And this leads to the source's really radical idea about the I, the knower.
The part that feels like me right now?
Yeah, the source argues it's not some permanent little entity inside.
No homunculus.
No. Instead, the I is the present passing thought. It's the current moment in the stream of consciousness.
Just the thought happening right now.
Yes, and its crucial activities to appropriate the past thoughts, to claim them, along with their objects, as belonging to it.
Whoa! Hang on, so the I isn't a thing, but an action. The action of the present thought grabbing the past dream and saying, that was me.
That's the core of it. The feeling of self, of meanness, is the feeling of that appropriation happening moment by moment. It's the continuity created by the present, inheriting the past. A dynamic, ongoing process.
Not a static core, but a continuous activity of owning the stream. That's a very different way to think about it.
It really is. So we've journeyed through quite a bit here, defining mind, the adaptable brain, the flowing stream of thought, how we know things, how we focus, memories, ties to self, and this dynamic view of the I.
Yeah, this classic source gives us such a rich framework. It's grounded in observation and psychology, but it tackles these huge questions about our inner lives.
And reminds us that understanding ourselves, our own minds, isn't just navel-gazing. It connects to how our brains work, how we interact with the world.
Absolutely. It offers a lens, to look at your own daily experience of thinking, feeling, remembering, just being you.
It really does. The most complex frontier might just be inside our own heads.
So a final thought for you to chew on based on all this. If the self, The I is this present passing thought constantly appropriating the past, and consciousness is this ever unique stream. Is the you listening right now fundamentally the same you as yesterday or 10 years ago? If the essence is the activity in the present, what does that truly mean for personal identity across time? Something to ponder.